Hello, everyone, and welcome to Rise Tribe. This is episode nine.
No idea.
I don't know what episode. Episode nine. I'm going to go with. It might be 10. Super excited today. I've got a dear friend of mine, Dan, who's joining us for our podcast. So Dan is a digital nomad who was forced to learn his rights and face consequences of his lack of knowledge, which changed his life forever. He's also learned how connecting to spiritual aspects of himself is an integral part of his path. So I'm really excited for this interview. I know Kirsty's got lots of questions around sovereignty, and yeah, so we're going to dive in. Kirsty, do you have anything to add?
Just saying hello to everybody. So great to have you here. And I talked to Dan as he's passing through. He's doing a bit of work in Sam, and he pops his head in the camera and says hello. So yeah, just really, really looking forward to getting to know you, Dan, and really diving into this subject, because this is a subject that I too, with my husband, are in the thick of. And this personal sovereignty, and would just really love to hear about your experience, your wisdom, and learn from you, really, because I'm at the start of this journey. So yeah, just really excited to learn from you and hear from you, Dan. So, and yeah, Sam's said so much good things about you, of course. So yeah, so just excited to hear from you. So I suppose my first question, and it goes to your bio, where it says you were forced to learn your rights or face the consequences. Oh, come on, tell us a little bit about that, Dan, because that's a real sort of hook that I was like, right, okay, need to know about this. So take us back.
Okay, I'll tell you how it all started. I was an engineer making great money, a real estate investor who had an apartment building that was very challenging at the time. And my sister got me and my other siblings into this, what's called DSC services. And they were supposed to save us a whole bunch of money on our income tax. We were supposed to get a whole bunch of money back from the government. It turned out that not to be the case. As a matter of fact, what ended up happening is everybody who had signed on with these people was chased down by the CRA, which is a Canadian Revenue Agency, same as the IRS in the United States. And they came after everybody for hundreds of thousands of dollars or else. Most everybody just went ahead and paid the government out, even though it was all fraudulent. I was the one that was a little hard-headed, and I wasn't going to give them I want to say $136,000 that they came after me for. So I got my learn on fast, or else. They were coming after me for $136,000 for a year that I wasn't even employed. I didn't even have a job as an employee, but they were coming after me for it anyway. So I got my learn on quickly. I met a lot of people in the, if you want to call it, sovereignty movement. I really don't like that word for my own reasons. But I got my learn on, and I learned what I needed to learn in an awful hurry. And I used administrative process with the CRA, which led me into other things with highway traffic violations, like driving without insurance, without stickers updated, just $6,000 in highway traffic act violations that I had to go to court for. So I went to court, but I didn't go and sign up to be the surety and say that I was the name, which is what everybody does. Are you Dan Berthiaume? Yeah, that's me. No, I didn't roll along with that. So I fought that also, and I walked away from $6,000 worth of highway traffic act violations, as well as $136,000 from the CRA, and some credit card debt, which is all fraudulent, and third-party debt is all nonsense also, because the bank or wherever you got your credit from, they get paid out as soon as you default on your first payment. And then a third-party debt collector goes ahead and buys that debt and charges you again. It's already paid. They already got paid, but they're going after you. They'll go after you 2, 3, as many times as they can because it's profitable. So in a nutshell, Kirsty, that's how I got started in all this.
Mm. And that's the thing, you know, sometimes we just need to have that jolt to wake us up to actually what's been going on. And definitely for me, COVID was that thing. You know, I think prior to COVID, I was so oblivious to the fraud, to the lies that we've been living like our whole life. And I mean, how did you sort of respond to this wake-up call, Dan? For me, you know, it's almost like been a grieving process. I don't know if you know, if you can relate, Sam, but you know, really, really upset to start with, then really angry, you know, and just going through these different processes, you know, like the whole lies that we've been told. I'm just wondering how was that for you? Because it sounds like, you know, you got given this debt that you had to pay. Everybody else ran around and tried to find the money because they're so scared, because this big company that they are coming after them, and you know, like the threats that come with that. And you were just there like, no, I need to get my learn on. So how was that wake-up call for you, Dan? Did you go through any of that anger, upset, you know, human emotion that's there, that was there for me anyway?
It always starts with anger, and then you need to learn to flip the switch on the anger and turn that into knowledge and love. And if that makes sense, you cannot fight these people from a warring position. They have all the guns, they have all of the ammunition. You can't do it that way. You have to do it from a place of peace and honor. You must stay in honor at all times. Yeah. Otherwise, they will own you.
Yeah.
So I didn't have any time to grieve, Kirsty. I had to learn quickly, and I had to learn who I was. Most importantly, if we don't know who we're not, how can we know who we are? Everybody thinks they're the all capital letter name on their birth certificate, and or on any bill that they get in the mail, for that matter, that's in all capital letters. That's not who you are.
Yeah.
That's your token on the board of life, if you want to call it that. That's like a Monopoly, I don't know, a token on the board. That's not who we are. That's a fiction. That's a two-dimensional fiction. It's a corporation. It's a franchise of the government. And if you look at the word corporation, it's got corpse, the dead thing. It's a fiction. It's two-dimensional. It's like this piece of paper. It's two-dimensional. You got to bring the third dimension into it and come into the land of the living. It's about the difference between being living and being dead. Being the dead fiction is a satanic corporation, if you want to get along those lines, and the land of the living is the Christ consciousness that's living as opposed to dead. It's a duality. And they've used this duality to set up this system, that this satanic cabal commercial system.
Yeah. And that's the thing, isn't it? You know, when we're born, you know, we've got to register that birth certificate. And that's literally handing our rights, our sovereign rights, over to the powers that be, isn't it?
Absolutely. The word register means to abandon.
Mm.
You abandon your sovereignty, and you're abandoning your estate, and you are another way of looking at register is regis, means of the king. So you're giving it away to the state, essentially, and you're saying, I'm not responsible enough. They consider you an imbecile and an idiot at law, and please manage my affairs because I don't know who I am.
Yeah. It really makes you look into the words, doesn't it? You know, like parents, you're renting your children from, you know, from the government, you know, like, so, you know, and this is what I've sort of gone down is, you know, the words that you used to, you know, like register and all those sorts of words that you just used to flippantly say, it really makes you start being more aware of these words and what words you're using, and the power of words, as we've always talked about. But this is, through this process, that the start of this process for me, it's really just woken me up to, wow, how much words have power. So much more than what I thought, so because there's so many different meanings when you start looking at it as to what those meanings are. Yeah.
Get really comfortable with the Black's Law Dictionary, because it's the black occult arts is being played upon all of us. And when you walk into a courtroom, it sounds like you're saying something like common parlance as we talk to each other on the street, but it means a totally different thing in a Black's Law Dictionary. So get really comfortable with the Black's Law Dictionary. I've got all of the editions. I like 4 and 5 best, but definitions of words are, look at that word, definitions, because this all started back with the Phoenicians. Get comfortable looking up definitions of words. So important. We need to understand the etymology and definitions of words, otherwise they're going to own us with words. Everything begins with sound, so we're casting spells on one another each day and we don't even know it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Look at the words also. I was saying this to Sam the other day. I think an anagram for words is sword, because it cuts both ways, baby. I mean, know your definitions. Know your definitions. They're super important. And
go on.
Now I'm just wondering, Dan. Sorry, we're all talking at the same time. It's like, go on. Sorry, go on. Carry on, Dan.
When you're contracting with the government, you can put addendums at the end of all of your contracts with your definitions of your specific words. That's a very important thing also. One more thing that I wanted to touch upon is conditional acceptance. Everything that you get in the mail is a offer to contract. And if you don't put the proverbial ball back in their court, look at a courtroom. It's like a tennis court. It's a game, but we haven't been taught the rules of the game. So if you are served something in the mail, and if you don't put it back into their court, the first one off of the field of battle loses. This is war. We've been in war, military type of jurisdiction for a very long time. This is war.
But that's the thing. You don't see the bombs. You don't see the guns. It's a very different type of war than what we are used to.
Spiritual war. It's a spiritual war.
Yeah, I mean, talking about, the post, I've got friends who have got rid of their post box, and so nothing can be delivered. So if it's not delivered, sorry, didn't receive anything. It's just I'm not playing part. I'm not playing your game. I'm not receiving that letter, so I can't do anything about it. So
that was a question I was going to ask, actually. It's like, so Dan, do you think that people should be responding to this mail and saying that they're not contracting, or are people, because I know that a lot of people are just ignoring mail and not opening it. Is that a good thing to do, or is that not the best thing to do?
Responding is important, but not responding saying I'm not contracting, because then you're not staying in honor. In order to stay in honor, you have to serve them your terms.
Right, okay, that's interesting.
Conditional acceptance. You always conditionally accept their terms, but then you serve your terms back to them, put it back in their court. If you don't do that, they consider you to be in dishonor.
Okay, so interesting. So would you say, for people that are just starting out on this, because it's so much and it's overwhelming for most people, where do they start, Dan? Is Black's Law something to look at and study, and would that be a good place to start?
Looking up definitions in a Black's Law would be a great start for everybody.
And then you said you don't like the word sovereignty. Why is that?
It depends on which definition you're going to use for sovereignty. I think the only real sovereign is our Creator. I think God is the only real sovereign. Do you have military? Do you have moats set up so somebody can't get into your space? Like that's a big conversation, Sam.
Okay.
But I really, in my opinion, God is the only sovereign. That
So when people are talking, because it seems more and more people are starting to wake up to this sort of thing, and everyone's talking about sovereignty at the moment. Are they misinterpreting this? Do they not quite know what they're talking about?
they need to make sure that they're using the right definition of what sovereignty is. I guess it gets back to that, doesn't it?
Okay.
If you don't understand every word that is coming out of your mouth, they're going to take advantage of you. This is a Babylonian word magic. They're taking advantage of us. The Bible says, "My people perish for lack of knowledge." This is what this is. This is what's going on. It's a spiritual war, and we need to know who we are. And we're not going to come at them with guns and with being belligerent and being aggressive, even though I used to be that guy. Okay. We have to come to peace with ourselves and who we are and who we're not, and come at this from a peaceful perspective. I'm thinking like the truckers convoy. I loved what everybody was doing there. That was beautiful. That was so much people coming together, but they're all flying a Canadian corporate flag. We're supposed to be flying a white flag of peace. They're all flying the corporate flag and complaining about the corporate fiction that they don't even realize. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Realize the deeper levels of what's going on. They don't understand the difference between the living and the dead. They don't understand the difference between who they are and who this piece of paper is, and all these contracts. All those contracts are for a dead fiction. Corpse is a dead thing. Oration is to make speak or to speak. We have to breathe life into these corporations or not. So if we're flying a corporate flag, we're kind of breathing life into that corporation and accepting surety for the debts of that corporation. All debts being collected are debts of the government, but we're assuming responsibility as surety of as a franchise of that government, instead of realizing who we are as if you want to call it sovereign beings. Divine.
How do people get this down? Because we've had conversations about this many times. I feel I'm only just starting to get to grips with this a little bit, because I've heard you talk a lot, and I've done some of my own stuff. How long did you study for? Tell us how long you studied this stuff for.
I've been studying this for 13 or 14 years. I studied it hard, fast, and furious my first 6 months because I was a raccoon in a corner and I needed to find out how to.
So you had that urgency, which really took you deep into this for that initial time. Knowing what you know and what you've studied, I don't know if this is a question that can be answered, but because the way my mind works with this is like I require step by step, like where do I go, what do I do, because it's so immense for so many people to kind of get to grips with this. And then the flip side of it is, and we've spoke about this being a real spiritual journey, how do people then find their foundations once they've all been ripped away, because this is all such a big lie. It's quite traumatic for people, and not everyone has that, firstly, the urgent need to deal with it, and secondly, the logical mind to deal with it. Not everyone has that. So how can we help people with that?
I would say you're asking a very broad question, and everybody has their own individual path. In other words, I really can't answer that for everybody. Everybody's going to be different. Everybody's going to have to go at it from a different perspective, depending on their past, on their soul journey. It's going to be different for everybody. I can't possibly answer that for the masses. We all have to do this. In order to be sovereign, we all have to go about this in whichever way is right for us.
Yeah.
Yeah, can I just add on to that? Because I was listening to a call for a lady who's helping people with sort of gas and electric and water. And she was saying there's not just one way of doing this. It depends on your risk tolerance, what you are willing to endure, you know, whether it's people knocking on your doors, are you okay with that? You know, that you unwanted visitors, should we said, you know, it really does depend on that individual and what they're willing to go through, grow through. So yeah, like it's a very broad question. I mean, for me, I mean, I don't know, like, where did you start? For me, it was finding out about, you know, reading the book or getting on YouTube and listening to the Straw Man. I mean, that in itself was just such a jolt of like you say, who I thought I was is not who I thought I was. Kirsty Kerrins, like that's who I was. But actually finding out that actually that Kirsty Kerrins is a dead entity created because of this piece of paper that I handed over to the government. So for me, that was where I started. I mean, what was it for you, Dan? Where was when you found out, right, I owe this money, where was your first go-to? What was your first, right, this is where I'm starting?
I was so overwhelmed at the time. I can't even think of exactly where I started, if I'm being honest, Kirsty, but I did go online and I started finding people. And I found some really strong souls that ended up being kindred spirits and my soul brothers and sisters in the world. They helped me through this.
Wow. Yeah.
Right now. If I don't like throwing names around, but the first guy that that really helped me a lot, and that was quite frankly by kicking my ass and not feeling sorry for myself. Every time I said but, or I played a victim, he kicked my ass. Because this isn't for the faint of heart, and I know people don't want to hear that, but it's the truth. Carl Lentz was one of the first guys that I learned a lot from. He actually came to Canada and we met up, and his kind of right-hand man in Canada ended up becoming a very good friend of mine also. I actually traveled out to see him, spent time with his family. I don't think he'd mind if I told you his name. He's Jonathan Little. But these are the guys that I needed to really, really, they say pressure makes diamonds, right? They made me a diamond awful fast. And anytime that I wanted to feel sorry for myself or complain about what they were teaching me, they just kicked my ass verbally and said, this is what a judge is going to do. If you're going to go in front of a judge and you're going to act like that, he's going to own you. And so that was a big part of my learning at the beginning, was not making excuses for being a victim, and just getting my learn on and staying very positive and very grounded in the truth of who I was. I know I danced around that question, but that's I guess that's the best way I could answer that for you.
And I think that's sorry, Sam. I think that's really important, is because there's people that have been before you. You know, that people. You know, Dan's been doing this 13 years. There'll be somebody that's been doing it 16, 17 years, and it is, and that's the beauty of, you know, the internet now and how we can connect with people. And I just think it's really important that you connect with like-minded people that have been on this journey, so that and without a doubt, if they are if they're good people, they will reach down and help you. Like you've had your mentors, and I've got my mentors within this. That, you know, even though they won't, you know, they're friends, but I see them as mentors and my go-to. You know, when I've hit a roadblock. So I think it's really important to find the people, and the people are out there that are doing. There's so many people now doing this. Yeah, find those people. So Dan, my question is to you. So, you know, you're saying about finding who you are. Who are you now compared to the person prior to this journey? What have you discovered about yourself?
I'm divine essence having a human experience, and I signed a contract to come into this, to come into this world through my parents. I chose my parents; they didn't choose me.
I've got goosebumps. Absolute goosebumps all in my body. Go on, sorry. Yeah.
We all have soul contracts to be here. We're here for a very specific reason right now. It's just whether we want to take responsibility for that or not.
The ability to respond to that calling.
That's responsibility as opposed to reacting like I'm pissed off and I'm a victim. And reacting is always from a negative, traumatic experience in your life, and it's never the answer. You have to sit back and think a little bit, maybe meditate a little bit, and then respond. That's called responsibility as opposed to reacting from trauma.
And so you said that you were really overwhelmed and when this all happened, and you found these mentors, which has obviously been pivotal. What other practices or methods have helped you through this?
I would say meditation, but that came after this initial interaction with the CRA, with the Highway Traffic Act authorities, with third-party debt collections. After that is when I really moved into a lot of meditation. But again, I just found the right people and got my learn on. I spent a great deal of money on different programs. Also, I probably spent $50,000 over the years.
So you invested in your learning for this?
I invested a lot in my learning. Yes.
Well, let's face it, our lives depend on it, really. You know, are we going to carry on being those slaves, or are we going to stand up to that? So what an incredible investment.
Yeah, it's a free will universe, and we make our own choices. Every moment, every day, we're making choices. Like you said to your kitties here today, please make good choices, kitties. We need to make good choices also from a place of responsibility instead of a place of trauma and reaction.
So,
both got questions. Go, Chris. You're good.
No, well, I mean, because like I said, you know, like I'm early on in this journey, and it literally has been a roller coaster. There's some days I feel so empowered and like I've got my sword and my, you know, whatever on, feel it, you know, like my armor, I'm like ready. And then there's other days like I'm like, what am I doing? Why am I even doing this? What am I putting my family through? Did you, and like you say, this is not for the faint-hearted. It's really not. I mean, you're really sticking yourself out on that skinny branch and holding on for dear life on some days. You know, you sound like and feel like such a grounded person. Have you gone through this emotional roller coaster that I have, or have I just been, you know, like a bit sensitive to it? What would you say?
100%. I started with anger, and I moved that into knowledge and love. I flipped the whole switch, because if they don't have you in a state of fear, they have no control over you. That's how they control us, is through fear.
Yeah, absolutely.
And trust and faith. Trust and faith is a huge aspect of all of this. Trust and faith in doing what's right, being righteous,
Beautiful.
doing what's equitable. Equity is another huge subject that we could do another whole podcast We could do 10 podcasts. We could do 100 podcasts on equity alone.
Wow.
And equity is the consciousness of God. Do what's right and what's righteous, even if it's uncomfortable, and even if it makes you squirm a little bit at first.
Mm.
Doing what's right is not always easy, and we're not here to take the easy path.
Mm.
If we wouldn't have signed the soul contract to be here in the first place. So
Yeah.
keep talking. I'm going to be back. I need to get clean it. I have air conditioners making my nose run.
No worries, honey. No worries.
It is, like you say, Sam, it's such a web, you know, like we started with where did we start? Council tax, that was it. And then once you start, sorry, my light's playing up. Once you start looking into this, you realize the lies go so deep. And, you know, we talk about the Matrix, don't we? You know, and it's just this like web that flows to something else that, you know, you uncover. And you know, they talk about going down the rabbit hole. And it really is, because one thing opens up another, and it's, you know, just going back to having that mentor or somebody that says, you know, like, go and have a read of this, look into this, you know, just pointing you in the right direction, because otherwise it's so overwhelming, you get so lost and so, well, it's too big, I can't take that on as a person. So it literally is just taking it step by step, would you say, Dan, and go at your own pace with it.
Step by step is a good way of saying it. One step at a time, with faith that the next step is going to be presented to you.
Beautiful. Yeah.
It's every system as well, isn't it? Once you uncover one little bit, like you're talking about the web, it's everywhere. And then the other thing, which I know many people find frustrating, is when you've seen some of it and you start to talk about it and unpick it all, and then you can't quite work out why other people aren't seeing what's going on and how to navigate that. And again, I think it's finding the right people, the communities that are already in this and dealing with it, to be around like-minded people. And it's also a really lonely path as well, or it can be, because you feel alienated. Another thing I know that all of us have felt is being alienated or seen as just like family and friends that you thought were there and had your back, and they disappear and they abandon. It feels like they're abandoning you, but actually they just are unable to handle this level of truth right now. So finding compassion for where they're at in this moment, but also not wasting your time with them as well, is another balancing act that I think I've been working with. What's your thoughts on that, guys?
My thoughts on that would be, misery loves company, and you can't help somebody that is in a victim state of mind. They cannot be helped. You're going to do nothing but bring your vibration down to their level, and you're going to hurt yourself and them in the process. Yeah. Some people are just not at that point in their path that they're ready for this information. You have to come at this, in my humble opinion, from a higher perspective of truth. I think Jesus said in the Bible, I am the truth, the way, and the light. So if you can't handle the truth, because you're going to be a victim every time I say something, it's not going to work out, and it's not going to work out for anybody. Everybody's at their own individual place in their path, and some people are ready for the information, and some people are not.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah. In my sorry, Dan. Yeah, in my yoga practice, just to add on to that, in my yoga practice, the yoga teacher was saying that everybody's operating from their level of consciousness. You know, so when I get frustrated with people, you know, I go back to, well, they're working at their level of consciousness. You know, somebody's, you know, further ahead, and it's not a judgment of somebody. Or, you know, like they're they're below me or they're above me. It like you say, it's just their spiritual path that they're on at this time and where they are on the path at that particular time. So that's kind of how I'm negotiating the whole frustration with people and how can they not see things. It's just reminding myself they're functioning at their level of consciousness right now. So
100%. 100%. And I think we need to keep compassion for these people. Compassion is so, so important. But that doesn't mean we get down in the mud with them and jeopardize ourselves and our loved ones in our path. We have to stay on our path, and we can't be taken off by somebody else that isn't ready to be on the same path as we are at this time. But compassion is huge. I mean, I love that word compassion. It's compression and internal combustion engine is made. Henry Ford or whoever came up with the first internal combustion engine, they're usurping the technology of God and they're putting it into a synthetic. Compassion and compression is, I think that's out of your heart chakra where you're taking in the torus field from above and then you're spinning it down clockwise into this clockwise illusion that we're living in, and that's where we're manifesting our world. But if you do that from a place of compassion, you're going to be a lot further ahead. I know this isn't law, but it is at the same time. So words are very, very magical for me now that I understand them a little bit more. The English language is the most corrupt language on the planet. I believe it was originally put here simply for the commercial realm. And then they said, hey, why don't we make this one of the biggest languages on the planet, because then we can really fool the masses with all these spells that we're casting on them all the time. I mean, it's crazy. Look at the words. I mean, we need a weekend because we've been weakened by the weekdays that we've been in. And good morning. Morning is when someone has died, and we wake to morning. It's all so convoluted on purpose. It's to keep us in a low state, a low energy state, a low vibration, so we can be controlled, because they know how powerful we are. And our power doesn't come from taking a gun and being violent. It comes from here. It comes from our balance. This is why this is the balance between our upper chakras and our lower chakras, because this is the balance point. This is where the compassion is. This is where all the power is, not here. This is the devil's playground. You know what I mean? This is what keeps people in fear, because they never drop down into here. And this has been a big part of my path. It's dropping into the heart space out of the monkey mind.
Oh, there's a question for you then, Dan, because like we've heard this saying. I don't know if you've heard this saying, but I've heard this saying so many times. The greatest journey you'll go on is the one from here to here. So for people that are listening and they're like, right, that's all very well. Okay, so I know I need to drop into my heart space, because I know my heart is my power source. That's where the power lies. How do I get from here, the logical mind, the monkey mind that's trying to keep us safe, that's so reptilian, that goes back to those times of, hunter-gatherer. Yeah. So how do we get out of our reptilian mind and into our power source? What advice have you got for you being able to do that? And I'm sure you jump from here to here, but if we can tip the scale and spend 51% of our time in our heart space and the rest 49% in our head, how have you done that, Dan?
By quieting the mind, for sure. By quieting the mind, by meditation, by balancing the neocortex, the left and right, the male, logical, thinking, the creative female, and coming into the middle and dropping into your heart space. It's been a long journey for me. I've been on this journey for 13, 14, more like 15 years probably by now. But yeah, quieting the mind, appreciating the silence, because the origin of everything is complete. The void is silence. There's no thoughts there. There's no judgment. There's no he said, she said, he did this to me, they did this to me, the government did this to me. Silence, focusing on the silence when you meditate is what has helped me drop from here to here. By getting out of the mind, by balancing in the center and drop. And I know that's it might sound easier, or it might be it might sound easier than what it is, but it's a process. It takes time. It takes
Definitely a
time.
process. And I just think there's so many different practices that people can do, and no one practice is correct or wrong. And actually, you might find that you do many different practices. And this is something that I talk about. It's do what feels right in the moment and just keep going and trust that whatever it is that you're experiencing is gonna take you forward. So I think people get a little bit bogged down with what's the one thing. And I know I ask, what thing am I meant to be doing, Dan? And it's not one thing, it's a multitude of things. But I think what's really interesting is for me and you, Dan, and how maybe you're gonna help people going forwards, especially men, actually. And it's and your journey from being very angry to where you are now is huge. So is that something, I mean, I've just put that on you, but is that something that you can see yourself doing going forwards, is helping others with your experience and your journey? Because it's amazing what you've done.
Absolutely, absolutely. I just need to be in the right space where I'm. Like they say, when you're in an airplane, you don't worry about anybody else until you can breathe yourself.
Yeah,
And I'm you know how close I am to being there, Sam.
I know. I'd like you to share what you're doing right now. You feel comfortable.
As far as business, as far as my spiritual process,
We'll get to business in a minute. Spiritual process.
I think that I know it's a spiritual process. Yeah. Well, me and you have been reading a really good book that has helped us, because we all have different birth numbers, and we're all born at a very specific time for a very specific reason, because we have very specific lessons
Mm-hmm.
to learn. And mine has been trust and openness, cracking open my heart, because my heart's been I'm a hard nut to crack, man. It's been a journey opening my heart, because it was very closed off for most of my life. So that's been my journey, trust and openness. And isn't it funny that faith and trust is a huge part of this law movement? And I've been in that for a long time for a reason. So I started off here with all the logic, and I moved into the spiritual aspect of everything and moving into my heart space. So trust and openness has been a big part of my path, and still is. Another thing people don't realize is the entire world does run off of trust law. A trust is like a triangle. You've got the creator at the top. If you want to look at the Bible, the very first trust indenture is the Bible, where God gave us dominion over the land, the air, and the water, which spells, what does that spell? Law.
I was just writing it down. Yeah.
We need to take control over all of those different realms, the land, the air, and the water. We have been lost at sea, and we have abandoned all of our property and are abandoned ourselves. And so these people have done a salvation operation because of our abandoned property. And now they have been trustees over our property that God gave us in the first place, but we don't know who we are. We haven't learned who we are. We haven't come home. to who we are. So maritime admiralty law is the law of the sea. And pirates have been given us salvation by taking our abandoned property and being trustees over our abandoned property. We're the beneficiaries over that God trust. The in God we trust of the United States is literally a Cessna KV trust. That is a public trust, and everybody has a fractal of that trust within their estate. This gets into trust law, like this gets into equity, and all the stuff that we were talking about earlier. This all ties together. So even though I started up here learning everything that I learned, everything fits together. Everything fits together. Trust, faith, equity. And in order to come back home and, dare I say, claim our estate, which we all have, all of our estates have been hypothecated since cradle to grave, because we registered, our mother was the informant. What does an informant do? An informant informs the authorities that a crime has been committed. And then they come in and they take the abandoned property and they do a salvation operation. It's all spiritual in nature. It's very diabolical. It might sound very evil, but it all ties together. And I'm sorry if I'm going too deep, but
Never apologize, Dan. Absolutely not.
This is not too deep, honey. This is just the start.
So it's just such great stuff.
So we need to come home and start acting as the beneficiaries of what God gave us dominion over. And in order to do that, we need to know how to wear a land, an air, and a water hat for the different jurisdictions, and realize that the law of the sea is the fiction. That's the commercial realm. Satan owns that realm. The Bible even tells us this. We need to come back onto the land, which is the law of property, and all of our rights exist on the land. So you've got the water is the lowest jurisdiction, then you've got the land, and then you've got the air, which is the ether, the Holy Spirit. This is where equity and trust law comes in, the spiritual aspect of ourselves. Those are all different jurisdictions, and we need to know how to operate and how to wear those hats in those different jurisdictions in a peaceful and honorable way. We have to stay in honor at all costs. And we need to know the difference between those three jurisdictions and know how to act in all of them. When I first...
Sorry, Dan, carry on. I've got a question in a moment.
One last thing, Sam. When I first started learning about this, Carl Lentz he'd make a joke about it like this, and he'd say, well, if it's benefiting me right now to be a person and take the benefits, I'm a person, I'm a man. I'm a person, I'm a man. And back and forth on those, like what jurisdiction is going to benefit you at this time? Even though I don't like the word benefits, because benefits and privileges can be taken away where God-given inalienable rights cannot. Nobody can take that from you. No man can come between you and God, you and your creator. No man can come between that. And these people understand this. There is spiritual universal laws that they have to abide by. A lot of people are saying, all of this stuff with COVID that has happened is it's been forced upon us because of mandates. A mandate isn't the law. Look it up in the Black's Law Dictionary. This has all been done by consent.
Yeah.
They have to have our consent. It's a spiritual thing. They have to have our consent, and everybody is playing a victim and giving their consent away.
And that's what people don't want to do. They don't want to take responsibility.
Look at the word consent. The con has been sent. It's all in the words, man.
It's all there.
And that's the thing, and it's always been there, isn't it? You know, until that curtain opens up and you actually see it for what it is. And then it's like a big slap in the face with a big kiss. It's there like, wow, okay, I see it now. How have I not seen it before? But oh yeah, it's a rabbit hole, isn't it, Dan?
It is a rabbit hole, and but it's so interesting to me. I mean, people want to talk about politics and sports. It's like boring.
Yeah. Let's talk about this light topic.
I just want to ask something about this. So you said about the law of the land. Is that common law? Because a lot of people in the UK have gone down the common law route. Is that a place to start? Is that helpful?
That is a good place to start, but don't get caught up in the whole common law thing, because common
Yeah.
law is based on case studies and
Right.
previous judgments by judges. So you need to know case law in order to do that. The highest, and what we should all be striving for, is our spiritual trust law, equity, the mind of God, the consciousness of God. That's equity. That's the law of the air.
And
Don't get stuck on the land.
where
Ground
would
land, don't get stuck there.
Yeah, I agree. A balance is required. Where would people go to look into spiritual trust law? Where would be a good place?
Oh, there's a variety of places. I think I like David Straight's work. He's traveling the United States doing seminars and teaching people. I've learned a lot from him. I've learned a lot from all of the gurus, really. I mean, I've become friends with a lot of them. Except the ones that are charging a lot of money, I would still consider them dear friends, but a lot of them are making commercial activity out of this, and I'm kind of don't know. I don't know what to think about all that.
Kind of goes against what this is, really. If people are making, yeah, that doesn't make sense to me either. But there are people out there that are not doing that, right? So
yeah, no, absolutely.
So yeah, they're bringing great things into the world, but they're making money from it. And if you think about it, you can't pay a debt with a debt. All money that's circulating from the central banks is debt notes. It's IOUs. And that's debt of the government that we're becoming surety for, because we're using our surname as surety for these debts. They're not our debts, they're the debts of the corporation, of the fiction, of the franchise of the government. And that's why every country has a public trust that we're the beneficiaries of, but we're acting as trustees.
yeah.
And the trustee has all of the fiduciary responsibility and liability. So we're operating these limited liability corporations, which we think are us. And so that we can give some of the responsibility to the government. How's that working out for us today? Not very good. We need to take responsibility back for who we are and move into jurisdictions of the land, and more importantly, the air.
Yeah.
Just equity and trust law. We need to learn how to operate our own private common law trusts.
So that brings me nicely on to, Dan, how do we then become separate to our what's the word, like our first name, our surname? How can we walk away from that? There's a saying, there's a word for it, I can't think what the word is, but yeah, so we're not part of that anymore. We've gone through a process where we claim back who we are.
Well, it starts by us realizing that that's not who we are. First of all, most people in the world don't even realize that that's not who they are. So know thyself, Know thyself is the starting point. And then we need to change our status and standing, and we need to terminate all of those contracts. Every time you've signed your name, signature, you're signing yourself out of nature, away from God.
Yeah.
And we're under all these contracts. We need to change our status and standing, and renegotiate all those contracts and actually remove ourselves from from being in those contracts. And that's a long process, Kirsty.
Yeah.
That's a process. That's not something like an for anybody
But there is a process with that, right? And once you go through and you learn what you need to learn and all the rest of it, if you choose to go down that route, you can. It's just a lengthy process.
It's a lengthy process. It's faster for some than others. Yeah. It's a process. Yeah.
It's a good place to put that.
And then it's the question, how do you live in this world, in that process? It's a very different way of being, isn't it? A very different way of living, I would imagine.
Absolutely. We're human beings, not human doings. We're always doing so we can get more debt, so we can pay off debt with debt, which doesn't, all we're doing is we're making the debt higher and higher and higher and higher instead of paying it down. When we come into when we break all those contracts and we start operating from a place where we're controlling the person, the token on the board, instead of saying that we are the person on the board, we pull ourselves out of the sea. We're no longer lost at sea. We've come home to claim our property. Property is a very important word too. What is proper to you is your property.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Again, it's a process. I know everybody would love for me to give them a silver bullet, and I'm trying to be more and more positive in my approach.
Yes, you are doing very well.
Yeah, no, absolutely, Dan. It's a massive topic to talk on, isn't it? You know, and you've given the listeners, you know, something to start with. I think that's always the hardest thing, isn't it? You know, that starting position, and it's making that decision to, you know, to take this step, because it's
courage. The courage.
Yeah.
Go down this path. It takes a lot of courage, and courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is what you do when you are experiencing fear. Mm-hmm. Are you going to run from it, or are you going to face it head on?
Mm.
I think that's one of the biggest points of this is courage, and also having the courage to do this when you're not under so much pressure. Like your situation was huge pressure, Dan, and it kind of forces people into it. But it's are we able to do it when we're not under such huge pressure, just because it is actually the right thing to do? That's interesting for me.
Yeah, I mean, we came to this, Dan, with the pressure. That's what's kind of forced our hand, shall we say? So and kind of say I'm grateful for it, I suppose. Yeah, you know, because it's where we are is where we're supposed to be, isn't it? You know, so whether you take this path under the pressure or the decision, you just choose it. I suppose that's just for the individual, for where they're at in that moment, isn't it?
Absolutely. Absolutely. We have to move also from a place of belief to a place of knowledge. If you look at the word belief, and I know I say this a lot, people roll their eyes, but there's a lie in the middle of the word belief, and everybody's believing a bunch of bullshit that's not true.
Mm.
And in knowing what's in that word, now, you're owning the moment.
That's really interesting. I love the word knowing. I use that. But beliefs is something that has been in personal development. Personally, I've been in personal development for 10, 15 years, something like that. And that's really hammered in like your belief systems. But now I'm looking at that really quite differently. Yeah, we're just growing. It's awesome. So Dan, what are you doing going forwards? Tell us a little bit about what you're up to in terms of what's next for you. Where are you at this moment in the world? And yeah, just give us a little bit of what you're up to.
Well, setting myself up in a financial place where I'm comfortable enough to actually do what I'm really here to do, which is to be a mystic and to teach people this type of work. But again, if I'm sinking in look at the word debt. We're drowning in debt. It's water. Debt is water. We need to pull ourselves out of the water and onto the land. In order for me to do that right now, Sam, I've step by step built a business that I'm now in the process of reaching out and getting value exchanges with people. I don't like calling it income because that can be taxed.
Yeah. Mm.
You can't tax wages, and you can't tax a value exchange, and you can't tax a gift. So anybody that I'm doing work for, I am receiving value in the form of wages for a value exchange. They're private contracts. Our constitutions all also allow us unlimited ability to contract with one another in our private status as living men and women. That's right in the Constitution of the United States of America and Canada. You have one in the UK. All in there. We're protected. We are protected if we just learn these things and learn to stand on them. So what I'm doing now is I'm doing value exchanges so that I can be comfortable enough where I have a roof over my head and food in my fridge so that I can do what I'm really here to do, if that makes sense.
It really does. It's amazing. So what a journey, Dan. You've left everything you had, your engineering work that was highly paid. You've gone through all of this learning and now rebuilding foundations to do what you're here to do. It's just beautiful.
Thank
It
you.
really is. Thank
And living
you.
next door to each other in Bacala.
Living in the jungle at the moment.
Yeah, living in a studio in the jungle and fighting the bugs and the scorpions and whatever else comes our way. But I feel like I'm on the right path. I'm right where I need to be. Everybody is. It's just whether they're going to accept responsibility for where they're at.
Mm.
And it's a lot easier not to, because we're running programs. We're going to get a whiteboard out and do another show sometime, and I'm going to get a whiteboard. And I'm gonna show how the metaphysical, spiritual ties to the physical, and our responsibility in all of this.
That'd be amazing. Let's get that book.
Beautiful. Yeah, we'll definitely do that. And do you want to talk about what we're up to, Dan, as well? Do you want to?
You mean our YouTube channel that we're starting? Is that what you?
Yeah.
So what is it? What name did we come up with?
Do you remember what we called it? It's
Sovereignty Unleashed, I think. Is it something?
Sovereign Spirit Unleashed.
Yeah, I love that, because this is all about our faith and spirit. Like, my faith and spirit is more important to me than saying I'm a sovereign. That's another thing, is all of the police of the world, and the police are just policy enforcers for a corporation. We're not under that jurisdiction unless we don't know who we are, because that is the jurisdiction of the sea. All of the roads are considered inland waterways, so that they can keep on pirating our ships and our abandoned property. Okay, so I'm sorry I go off on tangents and sometimes I lose my way.
Do not worry, it's all good. I like your tangents. We were talking about Sovereign Spirit Unleashed, what we're going to be doing with that, and yeah.
And what are you going to be doing with that? So that's a YouTube channel, interviewing, bit like a podcast. Is that what you're going to do, and sharing your knowledge?
Something like that, yeah. I think
We're just
I'm,
going to allow
I'm-
it to happen. Whatever happens, this happens. We're going to allow God to
yeah, we're gonna have some fun with it. I think Dan's got so much to share, and we gel in certain ways. I bring the fairy aspect, which Dan's starting to play with a little bit. How are those fairies doing for you, lovely?
They're good. They're good. They're hanging over in the corner
Right?
here. Yeah,
Exactly.
they're having fun watching my CES. Yeah, it's all good.
Yeah, for me, it's going to be really interesting because, like, Dan, for me, is a wealth of knowledge, and I find some of it quite tricky to take in. So I'm going to be a sponge. We're going to go and get a whiteboard. Very exciting. And yeah, we're going to have some fun with it. So watch this space. We'll let you all know about that.
Yeah, let us know when you're launching that. That sounds amazing.
Yeah, it'll be good. And Dan, where can people find you? Oh, hang on 1 second. We've got some questions for you.
The only organised questions that we actually have.
Which we kind of tend to forget to ask. So, Kirst, do you want to go first, actually?
Yeah, okay. So we are Rise Tribe, and Rise is like an anagram for, well, no, RISE, the anagram. Anyway, I'm waffling. So what we want to know is, for every word, just what do the words, when we say it to you, what does it mean to you? What does it bring up for you? So the first word is revitalize. What is that for you, Dan? What does it mean to you?
The word revitalize or the whole word rise? I like the word rise because you're rising from the sea to the land to the air where you belong.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that's the word. So we're broken the rise.
We'll take that one though. I like that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, and that was kind of our thoughts, wasn't it? You know, rising people up, you know, but I love that, how, you know, bringing it back to the different laws, and coming out of the water, coming out of the maritime law to the land and the sea. So yes, revitalize. I know it said rejuvenate. Revitalize. What does that mean to you, Dan? What does that bring up for you?
My life journey, basically, revitalize. I feel revitalized, having gone through a lot of the hard work already. We have to do the work in order to become revitalized. Otherwise, we're going to be stuck in our old programs and our old ways and our fear controlling patterns. So I guess that's what that means to me. That makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely, Dan. Absolutely.
Very, very, very good. Okay, and then so our second word is inspire.
Well, inspire, that's a beautiful one. Inspire is the spirit, spirit within. So that's what that means to me, is inspiration. And ION is a contract, if you want to get into etymology. So that's spiritual inspiration is a spiritual contract within. Everything that God creates from the metaphysical into the physical goes through a spiral. Spirit, the Holy Spirit. That's the morphogenetic field. That's the 0 point of all that is. Man, don't get me started.
He's just unleashed.
Right?
Really beautiful. Okay, so sorry, my dog.
Oh,
Do you know what? He always knows when we're coming to the end of this, because he'll jump up at the end. Okay, third word is in Rise is strengthen.
Strengthen. Well, strengthen used to mean this to me. It used to mean muscles. Now it means strengthening my bond with my spiritual, with my soul, with the oversoul, with the one, with the all. we look at a lot of this physical realm and judge it and say things about her and him and that. And meanwhile, it's all God, all of it. So, yeah, we shouldn't judge any of the physical realm because it was all brought about through the spiritual realm, through the metaphysical, through God. All is God. All is one. All is God. That does it for me.
Lovely. Okay, last one. Elevate.
Geez, you see, you started off rising out of the sea, out of the mud, and you're elevating. It's the same. You started with that, and you ended with it. Beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
And we had the spirit as the balance in the middle. Look at that. That's beautiful. So we got the spirit in the middle, and the inspiration, which is also spirit within, and then we're elevating to that spirit, to the balance in the middle. Yeah.
Check on that, Sam. How did we create that? Thank you, Dan. What a beauty. Yeah, wow, that's, love that.
Really amazing. Thank you, Dan. This has been lovely. Where can people find you?
Right now, compassonlinemarketing.org. That's more of my business that I've been building for value exchanges with other private living men and women. So if you're looking for commerce and income through me, you might be going to the wrong place. But we can do an unlimited contracting with each other in the private, and that's what I'm all about.
Right.
So compassonlinemarketing.org. I'm still working on that site. And I will have a few other sites built this week also. One of them is actually taking what I think may be the Antichrist and using it for good things, which is artificial intelligence, and using that as the value exchange to generate a lot of money for businesses that have databases that aren't good at answering their phone on time. It's called speed to lead. And out of hours Android also I built. And all of these modalities are just making people a lot of money right now. I just wish they would control it in a trust so that they're actually paying down the debt instead of getting more debt with it. But I can't do this for every person I work with. That would take several lifetimes. So that's where they can find me, compassonlinemarketing.org, and just drop me a message there.
Okay.
I'm on Facebook also.
I was going to say on your social, and that's your name. We'll put all this in the notes, Dan, so everyone can find you. Yeah, amazing. And
Reach out to me on Facebook if you're of like mind. Love to chat.
Yeah, amazing.
If you're not quite yet, that's okay too. Maybe we'll chat downstream.
Absolutely. And just, watch his space, guys, because there's lots of stuff bubbling away for Dan, which is really exciting, and he's just got so much incredible stuff to share. So yeah, I'll pop all the notes in and go and check out his pages. Amazing. Thank you so much for joining us, Dan. This has been awesome chat.
Thank you. Thank you,
Absolutely.
Sam.
Mind expanding, Dan, I think is the word. And, yeah, I'm definitely going to connect. I'm not connected with you on social, so I'm definitely going to connect with you on social. And yeah, there's more conversations to be had. So thank you so much for your time and for your light, Dan. You know, thank you for shining your light and leading the way in this for so many people to maybe just start looking at. So yeah, thank you for being here, and thank you for sharing.
Thanks for having me. This was a great conversation, you guys. It was very it was good for me. It was very good for me. Thank you.
Good stuff. You're so welcome. Okay, thanks everyone for joining. Dan's going to be back. We'll have him on again a bit later. And yeah,
The
let us know your
whiteboard.
thoughts with the whiteboard. Honestly, I've never been so excited about a whiteboard. Yeah, so thank you guys. We'll see you in the next episode. And yeah, till next time. Thanks so much.
Bye. Bye.
Much love.